will be joining, but I want to get started because we don't have a whole lot of time and it's already 11:02. So my name is Amy Geary. I am the Vice President of IT and Administration here at NBM. I run our IT division. I know many of you, from working with you on technology projects. I hope to get to know more of you. And so if you have any questions after this, feel free to reach out, call me, email me, and I'll be reaching out to everyone so you have my contact information after this. So I'm joined today with Natalie Suarez. She is a cybersecurity expert at ConnectWise, and ConnectWise is our cybersecurity vendor. They're excellent in keeping us up to date on the cyber landscape and providing the solutions that we need to provide layers of cybersecurity and risk mitigation. So we appreciate their partnership. We're excited to have her here to tell us about what's going on, what's the latest and greatest in cybersecurity. And, as I said, please reach out with any questions. Feel free to put questions in the chat and we can answer them here at the end of the presentation, or reach out to me after. So Natalie, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. So hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're from. And today we're going to talk about what you guys need to know about cybersecurity. I'm going to give you an update on the cyber landscape and talk about how you can protect your businesses. So this is me. And really the only important stuff on this slide is I am technical. I used to be a software developer. I worked for the Department of Defense for a while. And now I am very passionate about threat intelligence because it helps you protect your environment and my family and Lego, and not necessarily in that order. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to talk about what is this nebulous term cybersecurity. We'll talk about some of the concerns I'm sure many of you face. We do love acronyms in this industry. And so SMB, just small to medium business. And we'll talk about a particular phishing as a service attack because I want to explain to you some of the things the bad guys can do. We'll talk about people, process, and tech, risk and responsibility. Doesn't that sound exciting? And then I'll wrap it up with a cybersecurity analogy. And you are more than welcome to ask questions at the end. And as a matter of fact, if you have any questions during the session, feel free to pop them in the Q&A and we'll address them at the end because I can't see your questions till the end. So here we go. So times have changed, right? Back in the late 90s, we didn't get in strangers' cars. I would venture to say that most of you probably did not meet people on the internet. Some of us knew how to do kind of that thing back then, but not the mass majority. And now we literally summon strangers from the internet. We use this little device here, which is much more powerful than any computer I owned back then. And I go on my Uber or my Lyft app, and I literally summon a stranger and I get in their car, and most of the time nothing happens, right? So let's talk about this nebulous cybersecurity word. So this is an official definition from Gartner, and Gartner is kind of like the Consumer Reports of all things technical, except for the fact that Gartner is not non-biased because you do have to pay them in order to show up in their studies. This is what their definition of cybersecurity. And while I do agree with some of it, it is about the people, the policies, the processes, and technologies. I think they don't quite have it right. I think, and many of us in the industry believe, very strongly as a matter of fact, that cybersecurity is really all about managing risk. I know for most of you that it's a cost center. So it's only going to make sense when it reduces your business risk or somehow saves you money, right? So what are some of those concerns you may be facing? And feel free to use the Q&A if I'm missing anything or something particular resonates with you, right? Okay, so many times we call it cybersecurity confusion. People think that it's an IT challenge, and really cybersecurity is a business challenge because it's all about managing that risk. My priority is cybersecurity. Your priority is the business you are in. So You may have to deal with competing priorities. Does my budget allow me to add some new cyber protection, or is something within my risk tolerance? So I really need to use that budget to boost production for my business, for instance. A lot of you have faced this new remote workforce, right? Many of us have worked remote for a while, but some of us never had to experience that before. And that brought new challenges. It expanded your attack surface, so it expanded your risk. Maybe you don't have anyone in your organization that has any cybersecurity skills. And that's why we partner with NBM. So together, NBM and us, we can help you and fill that gap for you. Maybe you don't have a formal business continuity and disaster recovery plan. Your risk could include, I live in Florida, so we not only have to consider regular cyber risks, but what do we do if the power goes out because there's a hurricane? And then, like everything else, the cost of everything has increased, and that includes the cost of responding and recovering to an incident. Global legislation. Here in the US, we have different legislation in different states. If you work with anyone across the pond, you may have to comply with GDPR UK or GDPR European Union, because really what most of these have in common, and I've yet to find one that does not have this in common, is you have to obey those privacy laws and that legislation based on where your customers or clients are located, not based on where you are. Cyber warfare, based on my experience working for the Department of Defense, I think about this one a lot. So now with the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, we actually did see that some of the ransomware costs kind of dipped a little. And we're thinking that's because some of those guys are a little busy doing other stuff right now. But in regular war, kinetic warfare, when the conflict is over, we take back the weapons, right? We take back weapons, we take back equipment, we repatriate those soldiers. What happens in the cyber war? We can't take away their keyboards. And then this last one is a really big one. I think a lot of small businesses really underestimate the reputation damage caused by a cyber incident. And actually, I want to bring up a point here while I'm saying cyber incident. I want you to know that breach is a legal term. To be super careful about using that term. And unless your cyber legal counsel tells you to use that term, please don't. So one of the sources that I really like to use when I'm looking up stats for cybersecurity is Verizon's Data Breach Investigations Report. And they have a lot of experience in cyber. As you can see, they have analyzed almost 1 million incidents, and a little over 250,000 of those were confirmed breaches. And this report simply states, if you look at that first green box, that credentials are really the key path to compromising your states, much more than even phishing or exploit vulnerabilities. And I'll talk a little bit about those in a moment. But do you know where those credentials come from? A lot of times those credentials come from the fact that people reuse credentials. And what I mean is they're reusing their password. So they may use the same email address and password for their Facebook or their Amazon or their Instagram, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that they're using for work. And that is a really poor practice. Those things have been breached. Everything gets breached eventually, I hate to tell you. But those things have been breached. That means those credentials are on the dark web, which means bad guys have access to them. And everything they do is automated. It is not manual. And really, your organization needs to handle all of these types of compromises. If you have any questions about any of those, because I really can't go into detail with the amount of time we have, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A. Thank you. So some stats. So a new ransomware attack does occur about every 11 seconds. Some of my sources say it's more frequently than that, but I think 11 seconds is sufficient here. So as we discuss ransomware, I want to make sure you guys know that ransomware as a service is a real thing. It really is organized crime. And what has happened is, remember I told you how times have changed? When I started my career, if you wanted to be a hacker, a black hat hacker, a bad guy, you had to understand networks. You had to be able to write software. You had to know how to deploy it. You needed to know how to exploit vulnerabilities. And that's just simply no longer the case, because these same bad guys from back in the day, now what they do is they make their services available to others. So if you're a wannabe threat actor, we call them threat actors, and you want to use a exploit, or you want to use malware or a ransom that works, all you have to do is go to the dark web, get your crypto wallet out, pay, and you have a full pipeline available to you. And you can choose. Do you want, let's just take Lockbit, for example. They call their people who buy their services their affiliates. So their affiliate can choose, how much service do you want? Do you want Lockbit to do the whole thing? Do you want to take our software and deploy it and use our YouTube videos and our help desk and our payment processing center? And that's how they decide what split they get. How much does Lockbit get? How much does the affiliate get for their nefarious activities? And unfortunately, paying the ransom rarely works. So 61%, that's not a lot. And you don't get to pick which 61% of your data gets restored. That's why business continuity and disaster recovery is so important. Only that's the average percentage of data normally restored after a ransom. And I'm sorry to say, the news even gets a little scarier from there, that only 4% of all affected companies recover all of their data after paying a ransom. So this is what the average impact or cost, the average approximate cost, those are really big numbers. It did go down a little in 2022. We do think some of this has to do with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but that is still a lot of money. And that's the average. That is not the high or the low. So if you get ransomed, what do the bad guys typically do? Well, they're doing something we call quadruple extortion. And I borrowed this, and there's references in here from our friends in Canada, which, oh, by the way, I'm in Canada right now. But anyway, I'm always talking about this. I thought this graphic really summed it up really well. And it's really simple. It's so funny that I didn't think of creating this myself. But so what happens first is they typically encrypt your data. They may or may not encrypt your data. Then they ask for a ransom, right? Once they ask for that ransom, either you try to negotiate with them or you pay it. Either way, usually what happens is the next step is they have been in your system. They likely have all of your data. And what they do next is say, okay, if you don't want me to release your data to the public, you will pay another ransom. So that's our second bit of extortion. And then either you do or you don't, or you're negotiating and they don't like what you're saying, or just for the fun of it, they launch a distributed denial of service attack. And what that does is that makes your computing resources, either unavailable to you or unavailable to your clients. Either way, it's very damaging. And then they've gotten really bold. They will actually pick up the phone, not email, pick up the phone. They know who your clients are and call them and make sure your clients know what has happened. So what is this beautiful slide all about? So I wanted to share some stories from around your area. And also I wanted to share some national stories. So first of all, I wanted to show you the one with the pretty colors that says cybercrime. I just wanted to show you, this is an article from January of this year that talks about that whole ransomware as a service that I was just telling you about. It just lends credibility to what I'm doing. You may recognize on here Facebook, OpenAI. I get a lot of questions about AI. One thing I do want to point out here is AI isn't new. It's new to the masses because of things like ChatGPT and BART and different flavors of AI that are available through different providers like Microsoft or OpenAI or Google or whoever. But these actually add a new layer of complexity to the cyber landscape. Because you know what ChatGPT and its brothers are really good at? they're really good at writing text. That means it is really good at creating a really convincing phishing email. And the issue with that is, we used to tell you that if you got an email and something was off with the grammar or the sentence structure, that was a key indicator that that was probably a phishing email. Everyone remember the emails from the Nigerian prince? Well, now with OpenAI's ChatGPT and those other tools, it's very easy for an attacker whose first language is not English to create a well-crafted and grammatically correct phishing email. And then if you want to go down to Facebook here, what happens if I'm always on Facebook and I'm always filling out these little quizzes? What's my favorite color? Who is my first boyfriend? What hobbies, mother's maiden name, where were you born? Where did you meet your spouse? If we're filling those out, that is a really bad practice. And not only is filling those out a really bad practice, but those cool little games that it says, hey, give me your image and I will morph that and show you what you're going to look like when you're 85. Those are really dangerous to use. You don't know who the data is going to. I would guarantee that most of the time that it's going to a threat actor. And think about the combination of that in combination with the power of AI. Now they're going to be able to create really targeted phishing emails because they have information on you. They're going to be able to use your likeness, perhaps in a deep fake. And, back in the 90s, we could do face swapping with Adobe, but we weren't making video. Well, most of us weren't. Now that's so easy. So just to go from that story to this other one, in the right-hand corner, you see this beautiful face. This could be a woman. This could be a man. This is created with AI and it has an AI chatbot behind it. And there's a couple things that could happen here. One of them we call pig butchering. Pig butchering is as an adult, you develop a relationship with a stranger online. You think you have a real relationship with them, and they ask you to invest in something, and you invest, and they set up very elaborate schemes. You can look online at their elaborate web page that shows how great your investment's doing. And then when you go to take money out, guess what? There's all these fees, there's all these excuses, and they're there to extort money from you. The other thing that can happen is you develop a relationship. Maybe you share some inappropriate pictures and then you end up getting blackmailed. So not only in your business life do you want to be really careful about this, but this is something you want to educate if you have teens at home about making sure they really know who it is they're friending online. And I just want you to show, there's a few stories here from Massachusetts. There was a health insurer hit by ransomware. Most of you available. Oh, I really like this story because I did it twice, about the Massachusetts Steamship Authority being impacted by a cyber attack. There's education. There's another ransomware group behind an attack that happened in a city in Massachusetts. The same one that hit Oakland and which I believe is near LA. So I just want to point out this is happening. And honestly, I know some of these are national stories or some of these are really big organizations, but the thing is it, unless you're required to report that you have been hit by ransomware or some malware, it's very rare to find stories on small to medium-sized businesses. Now, I hear them because I'm in the industry. I'm sure that that Amy hears them and NBM hears them, but in our circles, but unless someone's willing to step up and share with us, unless they're in like a regulated industry like healthcare, financial, where they're required to report, it's very rare to find a story on a local small business. So I I want to show you how this attack works. This is a real phishing as a service attack that is available for purchase on the dark web, but don't get any ideas. You don't want to go to the dark web unless you have a strong constitution, because you'll find one of the reasons we advise not to pay ransomware, and when I say we, I really mean me, is because you are funding lots of bad stuff. You're funding human trafficking, you're funding more malware, you're funding more ransomware, you're funding the drug trade, and it's just really a bad idea because the chances of getting your information back are really not good. So in this attack, there's two flavors that I know of. Evil proxy is one, the other one is called greatness. And so you have a user and you have a target website the user wants to get to. The target website in this case is office.com. So the user gets an email from Microsoft that says your credentials have been breached. You have been breached. Your credentials have been compromised, and you need to click here to change your password right away. First thing I want to tell you is never click here. Unless you are expecting the email, even if it's someone you know, you don't ever click on a link or download a document. And the reason is, remember what I told you about AI being really good at fooling you? Even if you mouse over the email address and it pops up and it is the email of the person you know, how do you know that either they or someone in their organization was not compromised? So if you get an email from someone you know, simply pick up the phone, call them at the number you know to be them, not the number in the email, and confirm that they really meant to send you that link or that attachment. I have real life stories and experiences I can tell you about that people actually found out they were compromised because they got those phone calls. Business A was compromised. Someone at business B got an email and they picked up the phone and called and said, I got this email from you. I really wasn't expecting anything. And then they got a bunch of those calls and then they realized, uh-oh, something happened here. So what happens now is, unfortunately, this user does click. Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself here. So we call this an actor in the middle attack. So you see, this is why the attacker is straight in the middle of the screen. He has set up a phishing website, and it's office with lots of F's.com, and this is run by the attacker. So I want to point out a couple things. So everything is encrypted, TLS encrypted. Now, if you know what that is, it's really simple. When you're on a website, you see that little, maybe it looks like a little shield by the URL and it's green, no certificate errors, everything's peachy. That does not mean you're safe. That just means everything's encrypted. Can a bad guy set up an encrypted website? Yes. Can I set up an encrypted website? Yes. Can you? Yes, just go to YouTube. So unfortunately, this user does click. So this user inputs the username and password, and this goes through the bad guy's site, which we'll refer to as a proxy server. I'm greatly oversimplifying this because we only have so much time. All you need to know about a proxy server is it takes information from one server and sends it to another server. So user inputs their name and password. This goes through the proxy server. It is passed to office.com. Office says, oh, look, my user's logging in, and says, okay, user, you're a smart user because you set up multi-factor authentication. In case you don't know what that is, that's like when you maybe go to your office.com or you go to your bank's website and they send you a text with a code that you have to input. There's many ways to do that. We can talk about that in more detail if you're interested as well. So what happens is Office thus also passes through the attacker's website. It is forwarded on to the user. So the user gets the normal prompt they're expecting to get, which wants them to put in their secret code, and they put in their secret code. So we're still good at this point, believe it or not, because even though this information is passing through this bad guy's server, it's all encrypted. Now, could the bad guy figure out how to decrypt it? Maybe. Does he need to? Absolutely not in this attack. So then the bad guy's proxy server forwards that information to office.com. Office gets it and says, bingo, life is good. This is really my user. Then it returns something we call a session cookie. this is where it becomes really bad. The session cookie, all you need to know is that is everything that attacker needs to log in as you. That means now this attacker has that session cookie. They can see all your OneDrive files. They can see everything that you have permission to in your SharePoint. They can see all your email. They can send email. And that's why you should never click. And the reason I show you this is not to tell you MFA is bad. MFA is one of the best things you can do. But remember early on, I said we're going to talk about people, process, and technology. Well, you need people, process, and technology, or we like to call it defense in depth, where you have multiple layers of safety to protect you. So the first level of safety that you would need here is security awareness training. So this user knows, unless I recognize who this is coming from and I'm expecting it, I don't click. So you may say, well, but this is from Microsoft. First of all, it's not really from Microsoft, but even if it's from Microsoft or Google or Facebook, don't click on the link. Go directly to that site. You know how to get to Google. You know how to get to Office. You know how to get to Facebook, right? So worst case scenario, you go directly to the site yourself and you change your password. You've wasted 5 minutes of your life tops, especially if you use a password manager. You've really only wasted 5 minutes tops. So that is really the safest thing. Now, if this user falls for this attack, and like in this case, what would save us? Well, if you had a SIM, which I'll talk about in a moment, that could see the network traffic, that could see if there's a large exfiltration of data or creation and deletion of Outlook rules because we're trying to propagate malware to everyone within the organization or trying to propagate malware to all of our clients or whatever. If we are trying to propagate malware to all of our organization, if we all have something called an endpoint detection and response, or managed detection and response, that should catch when that malware tries to launch. And then I'll talk about these in a little bit. So I'm going to move on to my next section. So how do we protect ourselves against this type of stuff? Well, like I said, defense in depth, right? So what are some of those things that we need? So really, this is the minimum acceptable technology. And trust me, it was really difficult to make this list this short. An incident response plan. That's not a technology. That is a written document that says that allows you to plan, to know what to do if there's a crisis. You don't want to be in the middle of an incident and trying to figure out what you're doing then. When you're in the heat of the moment, that is the absolute worst time to try to think about what you do. So you want to plan. If we experience a business email compromise, what are our first steps? Who do we call? What do we do? Multi-factor authentication. Like I said, multi-factor authentication is a great tool to protect yourself, not just in business, but in your personal life. There's multi-factor by text messaging. There's free apps that use it. There are hardware tokens you can use that with. Then I mentioned this mysterious endpoint detection and response. What is this? Well, we're going to get a little more to that in a moment. And also a SIM, a security information and event management system. Business continuity and disaster recovery. That's a series of plans and your backups and all of that good stuff to save you if the worst were to happen. And then a new one from our friends in the cyber insurance industry is privileged access management, is, managing who has admin credentials and what they can access. Should I be an admin on my local machine for work or for home? The answer is no. And oh, by the way, if you want cybersecurity insurance at a decent rate, you will have these things. So what is this people, process, and technology all about? Well, think of it as a three-legged stool. So what happens with the three-legged stool if one of the legs is shorter than the other legs or one of the legs is completely gone, right? Well, that stool's going to topple over, right? So same with your cyber protections. We have to consider people, process, and tech. And honestly, the best way to describe this is a tech that I'm sure we're all familiar with. So Bob in accounting gets an email from Jen, the CEO, and Jen says, Bob, I don't have time for you. I'm in a meeting, but our most important vendor, our invoice is past due, and I need you to wire 100K to them right now, or ACH it, whatever, it's financial. I need you to ACH, this info to them. And oh, by the way, their information has changed, their routing and account number. They had to open a new account. So that has changed, but don't reach out, just do it. Bob sends the transaction. Uh-oh, guess what? That was not really Jen, the CEO. Now, were there telltale signs? Probably. Like, it probably really didn't come from Jen's email. She probably was not part of a business email compromise. It was probably just a fake phishing email. But Bob fell for it. And why? He may have fallen for it because we left out the people part. Maybe we weren't doing security awareness training, or weren't doing the correct security awareness training. We definitely didn't have a policy about transferring funds, right? Should we have taken it from an email to change ACH information and immediately wire funds without any oversight? Probably not. And that is what led. And did he have technology? Obviously he did, because he hit the button, right? But that's what happens if you don't cover all three of these. Oh, now we're getting to the good part. So let's talk about EDR/MDR. Remember how I said we love those acronyms? So what is this all about? This is endpoint detection and response, or managed detection and response. And the managed part comes in when you have a team of security professionals, security engineers, security analysts, researchers who are looking at the data from the endpoint detection and response to help you make decisions. So what does this thing do? Well, in the simplest of terms, I hate to compare it to antivirus, but it's like next gen antivirus. In my professional opinion, antivirus is almost useless at this point and almost out the door. And I said almost, so don't go and install your antivirus. But so I like this quote when we talk about EDR, MDR. You don't know what you don't know. This is kind of sort of Socrates. What Socrates really says, I only know that I know nothing. And the reason I say that is because with an antivirus, it's signature based. So basically, you have a Word document. So antivirus knows what Microsoft Word looks like, or any file, and it says, does the signature of this file match what's in my database of signatures? If the answer is yes, antivirus says, oh, great, go on through. What EDR does is it says, are you behaving in a normal way? So if I open a Word document and it tries to launch a process on my machine, then EDR goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Your Word, you're supposed to be used for text documents, and you are trying to launch processes. This isn't allowed. So what it does is it should stop it in its tracks. And I want you to know the reason I said it should is because you're never 100%. Unfortunately, we as the good guys have to get it right every time. The bad guys only have to get it right one time. So if anyone ever tells you you're 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt, nothing bad's going to happen, please run fast. Okay. So I want you to have this as a takeaway. So basically, just remember, EDR and MDR are all about you don't know what you don't know. And MDR, we call it a SOC, a security operations center, sits behind it and helps you, because bad guys typically attack, especially on holiday weekends. If you're in the cyber industry, you hate holiday weekends, or in the middle of the night, always at the worst possible time, right? So what is this SIM thing? So a SIM is a security information and event management system. What does this do? Well, this takes logs from everything in your environment. So like from your EDR, from your firewall, from your office, even in the cloud, all your cloud devices, and it correlates all of that information together and creates something we call an alert that says, hey, something crazy might be going on here. You, security specialists, take a look and see if this crazy thing is an incident or a breach or whatever. And it can look at your network traffic, it can look at predetermined rules, and this helps you provide your larger infrastructure, where you could think of endpoint detection and response that would protect all of your work from home people and your in the office people and everything that happens on your local machine. So this is just a nice picture that kind of shows you the SIM in the middle. It's getting information from work from home employees through various logs, including the logs from the endpoint detection and response, cloud integrations like Office or Google Workspace, any of your network devices, and it has various tools it can use for cloud and on-prem stuff to monitor for you. So what are some real life use cases of these? So EDR can be used to manage the use of external devices, maybe to not allow you to plug in USB sticks. It can isolate a machine if it sees something bad is starting to happen. It can detect user behavior anomalies, compliance. SIM is good to see things like network report scanning, process execution. EDR actually takes action. SIM creates alerts that tell someone that's a security expert what to do. So it can really help. Both help with cyber insurance, both help with threat hunting. If you have any questions about this, let me know. So risk and responsibility. We've been talking, hopefully you understand that this is all about risk. So notice that we call this the data responsibility pie. It's a circle, not a line. Nobody's pointing fingers at anyone else, but this is all about understanding the responsibility for protecting the data in your environment, whether it's the data of your employees, the data about your organization, or the data about your clients. So as the data owner, business leader, you're the data owner. And you own the liability, and it's because you established the budget for protecting data. And this is key. And the reason is if I have two businesses in the exact same vertical, say they're both, let's see, what do we want them to be today? Say they're both coffee shops. They may have different risk tolerance. They may have different business objective. Maybe one coffee shop wants to be acquired by Starbucks and get a huge payday and peace out. Maybe the other one wants to stay a mom and pop and just loves the business and, wants to pass this legacy on to their children. That's different business objectives. And they may have different risk tolerance. So maybe, one offers free public Wi-Fi and one doesn't because that's not within their risk tolerance, right? And that's just to explain to you how every business is different, right? So you as the data owner own the liability because you set your risk tolerance and your business objectives. And together with a professional organization like NBM, who may manage your IT as well as your cyber information security, they're going to come alongside you, implement solutions, and will be custodians of the data. So they do share in the responsibility, but as your IT team, they'll implement solutions. As your cyber team or your information security team, they're going to have discussions with you and they understand the risk side of it. They can explain that information to you in a way you can understand so that you can set that budget for publishing that data. So it all comes down to this in cyber. What risk level are you willing to accept to protect your most valuable assets? So let's talk in analogies. Remember I said that NBM is going to explain this to you in terms you can understand? Well, we know we have a language barrier. So maybe if we had some way to translate that, that would be helpful to everyone. So let's say you live in a home. And I'd venture to guess most of you live in a home, whether it's a house or an apartment or a condo, right? So let's talk about this for a moment. So in our home, we do several things. The first step is we identify what we have. So if I were in person with you, I would say, hey, what do you have in your house that you want to protect? And you see some examples here. And these are most likely the things you would shout out, right? My family, my collectibles, me, it's my Lego, in case you didn't know. Your documents, maybe your passport, your marriage license, your kids' birth certificates, your birth certificate, your electronics and computers. And then actually there's a kind of subset in here. You have to categorize it. What's most important? So for instance, if I bought a TV 2 weeks ago and then someone breaks into my home and steals my TV, that's really sad. I am going to be sad, I can assure you. However, I do have insurance. So my insurance, because they no longer make that electronic they made 2 weeks ago, right? I'm going to get an even better TV in return. But what if they steal my laptop, my home computer that has everything about my kids, where my kids go to school, where I work, where my husband works, where, you know, links to my retirement plan, my bank, all of that good stuff. So that is way different. That's way worse than my TV being stolen. How do I protect these things? Well, I have doors and windows, I have locks, education. If I have teens at home, maybe I'm educating them on the dangers of social media. Once it's on the internet, it's always there. So be careful about what you post, stop and think, be careful who you friend. In the US, especially, we just love our yard signs, right? Protected by ADT, Brinks, Simply Safe, Ring, whoever. Um, if someone gets past our protections, how do we detect? Well, we may actually have the alarm that goes with that sign. They have a motion sensor, may have that Ring doorbell camera. Anyone want to venture to guess how many times Ring has been breached? We may have a nosy neighbor, neighborhood watch. How do we respond? Well, maybe we have a dog that protects our family. Maybe we decide it's too dangerous and we just run away. Maybe we pick up the phone and call 911. Maybe we use a baseball bat to protect ourselves. And let's round it all out at the end with how do we recover? Well, if it's a cyber incident, our incident response plan, our business continuity and disaster recovery plan, which, oh, by the way, we might have a disaster recovery plan for ourselves. Like I mentioned earlier, I live in Florida, hurricanes. So we have a disaster recovery plan. If we get separated, we know where we're to meet. We make sure we have plenty of supplies and know where those are at. Um, Both in your home and in your business, you have insurance. You have your homeowner's insurance, you have liability, personal liability, you have business liability. You should have cyber insurance. And then, emergency equipment. What if a power line is downed and you need emergency equipment? What if there's an earthquake? What if there's a tornado? Those types of things. And all together, we call this the right cybersecurity. And guess what I just taught you? I just taught you the NIST cybersecurity framework. Now, wasn't that in super simple terms that anyone could understand? And any modern cyber framework can be boiled down to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and soon governance. But that's a story for a later date. So this is not meant to be all inclusive, but these are the main components of a well-designed cyber solution for your business. But remember how I said just a moment ago, every business is different, so you may have different requirements. I'm not going back on that. That's true. So how do we know what you need, where you need it, how much of it you need? Well, we're going to do a security assessment based on that framework that I just showed you. And we're going to use that to determine where you are now and where you want to get to. And let me just point out here, cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination. Because we get smarter, new disruptive technologies, aka AI, come out, and the bad guys use those for bad. But guess what? We use them for good too. So things will change. It's a journey. And I want to leave you with some thoughts for me personally. So when I started as a software developer, I had a boss who would always say, the perfect is the enemy of done. And the reason he would say that is because we software developers, we're a little cray cray. And we do some weird stuff. So some of the weird stuff we would do is like we'd have a requirement from a customer that would say, well, I need to access a certain piece of data in a certain amount of time and manipulate it in a certain way within that time period. And one of us would get that done. And then someone else would pop up, allegedly maybe me, and say, well, you know what? I could do that in 5 seconds versus the 10 that are required. Or someone would write a really long line of code with great comments and everything. And someone would go, I bet you I could write that in one really obscure line with no comments that no one would ever understand. Because, like I said, we're a little crazy. And our boss would always say, time out, guys. The perfect is the enemy of done. Let's get it done to the requirements. If we have time at the end and there's things we can make better, we really should share this with the customer and see where they would like to focus our efforts. And so I looked this up and is actually a Voltaire quote. I want you to notice this is the second philosopher quote in here, that the perfect is the enemy of good. Philosopher quote, that means I'm really smart. Haha. Anyway, the reason I'm saying that is cyber can be super overwhelming. We've only been together like 45 minutes and I have just shared a ton of information with you. And I just don't want you to get overwhelmed. I want you to stop for a moment and go, well, let's just start somewhere because the perfect is the enemy of good. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to get it all done in 15 minutes. And, where would I recommend you start? Well, I would recommend you start by talking with NBM as your trusted advisor and your cybersecurity expert to start with a complimentary cyber assessment. And with that, I think I want to go ahead and we can move into if there's any questions. So let me see what's going on in here in the Q&A. And bring Amy back on. Amy, do you have any final thoughts you want to share with everyone, or any questions you think I should anything I should address further?
Yeah, Natalie, that was great. That was really good. I actually got a lot out of, I mean, I know we talk about it all the time, but the role of AI now, in these phishing emails is amazing. And
Yeah.
they are getting so clever, they look so real. Before you could, recognize something through a misspelled word or sir or madame, broken English, but now all they have to do is type it in, the AI engine, and looks like it's legit. So
Yeah.
it's a good point to think about. Yeah, I really appreciate you doing this. And we, even I learned something. So in terms of, the latest phishing attacks, we offer all these solutions that Natalie talked about. We offer everything from MDR to SIM services, to cybersecurity as a service, managed firewalls, anything that you would need to improve your cybersecurity posture and get these layers of risk mitigation in place. So I'll be reaching out to everyone to, with my contact information. So if you have any other questions, we are doing complimentary cybersecurity assessments right now through the end of the month. So if you are interested in that, I encourage you to take advantage of that offer in honor of Cybersecurity Month. So I don't see any questions here, Natalie. I think you touched on a lot of these things.
So one point I do want to bring out is I think I said this before, but I really want to stress two things. One, MFA is good. That wasn't the purpose of showing that attack. It was to show you need defense and depth. You need multiple layers of protection. And two, don't be scared of new technologies like AI. It just means we have to learn new things. And it really is a lot of fun and can really be educational. Just be careful not to give away any secrets, because if you're using ChatGPT, anything you tell it belongs to it. Hoping it belongs to OpenAI. But you can use it to do some really cool and fun stuff. That's good.
Definitely. It's just a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. It's always good to learn about this, and we're always excited to have you guys come and present to our customers. And I'll be in touch, like I said. And if anyone wants to take advantage of the assessment, I would love to talk with you. And good luck.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Take care.
Natalie. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.